Right, what is up you guys, and welcome back to the Progressive Skills in English Level 2 coursebook. In this video, we're going to be going over the writing section for Theme 4. So let's dive right in. Here we have simple exercise, spelling, A, reviewing vocabulary. Let's dive right in. Here we have complete these words. So one will be achieve, I-E, and then V-E, okay? Two will be classify, so class, and then I. Okay, classify. Three, that'll be competitive. So C-O-M-P-E-T-I-T-I-V-E. Okay, competitive. Four will be cooperate. So C-O-O-P-E-R-A-T-N-E. Okay. Five, we have the word coordination. So C-O-O-R-D-I-N-A-T-I-O-N. Okay, coordination. Okay, what else do we have? This is the word develop. So D-E-V-E-L-O-P. Seven is pretty, oh yeah, I know what this is. It's called equipment. Okay, so equipment. Okay, 7, equipment. 8, that'll be the word estimate. Estimate. And then finally E. Let's keep going. 9 will be objective. O-B-J-E-C-T-I. That'll be I-V-E. Objective. Okay? And finally, a simple word, we have spread, E-A-D, okay? So, again, from 1 to 10, we have achieve, classify, competitive, cooperate, coordination, develop, equipment, estimate, objective, and spread, okay? Now, let's move on. Here we have building vocabulary. Let's take a look here. Okay, so read the first paragraph of the text, then put the extra information, pieces of information in the correct place. Do the same with the second paragraph. Okay, so we're going to read the first part of the text here and put the extra information where we see fit. So let's take a look. 50 years ago, all children played physical games. So what could come here? We'll say after and raised their self-esteem. It only makes sense, right? So 50 years ago, all children played physical games and raised their self-esteem. Let's take a look at 2. They got exercise from games. Well, also, and they also learned skills. They learned motor skills. We'll say, you guys know what motor skills are, right? It's like concentration and focus on a particular task. That is motor skills. Okay, they learned social skills. For social skills, we'll say something like concentration and focus. So for social skills, we'll say like cooperation with other people, right? You want to be social. It comes from the word social. So not being socially awkward or, social or have social isolation or something like that. Anyway, let's keep going. So they learn mental skills. For mental skills, it's something like, hand and eye coordination, right? Well, something that comes with a lot of practice, okay? So, for example, if you play ball or if you play soccer or anything like that, you know that in order to get better, you just have to simply practice more and more and more. This is also true for video games. So these are all called mental skills. In many cases, the physical games made the children feel better about themselves. We'll say that final part, think when they were out of school, right? In many cases, the physical games made the children feel better about themselves when they were out of school. Okay, now let's go to the second paragraph. In 1961, the first electronic game was developed. Interesting. So, because they are on your own. Okay, for that, we'll probably say, was developed. And now every teenager plays computer games, right? So The first electronic game was developed, and now every teenager plays computer games. 50 years later, sales of electronic games reached $5 billion. Wow. For that, we'll say because the tasks are too simple. Okay? Many children do not get physical exercise. This one is true. We'll say because they are on their own. Okay, oh, it's already here. So many children do not get physical exercise because they are on their own. They spend most of their leisure time playing computer games. They spend most of their time playing computer games, we'll say in their bedroom. It only makes sense. They do not get physical activity. They do not develop their social skills when they are out of school. They do not improve their mental skills. We'll say because the tasks are too simple. No, I'm guessing. I messed something up. So 50 years later, sales of electronic games reached 5 billion by Steve Russell at MIT in the United States. So this is like a quote. And they do not improve their mental skills because the tasks are simply too simple, right? You don't need to do much. Okay, so that was exercise B. Let's move on. Let's take a look at the vocab box. Here we have billion, button, concentration, cooperation, coordination, focus, improve, mental, motor skills, on your own, press, raise, and social. Okay, let's go to exercise C, developing critical thinking. Should physical education be compulsory in secondary schools or not? So notice how it said secondary schools, not high school or primary school. So we're focusing only on secondary schools here. Okay, so I'll say this will be up to you, okay? But you have to understand that, for me at least, like in my personal opinion, physical education should not be compulsory. And let me just give you my reasoning behind this. Some kids in secondary school, they struggle, right? With bullying and other stuff that, a lot of people know that happens in school. So adding physical education to the mix could instead induce depression and anxiety because, the whole competitive nature of kids when it comes to that age. So although I don't think that it needs to be compulsory, I do believe that it should be available for anyone that seeks, to have physical education as a part of their daily school routine. Like, for example, if I'm in secondary school and I don't want physical education, I should not lose marks and have people judge me based on that. But if I'm someone that's, trying to get better and want physical education as part of my routine, I should be able to find it easily and not have to fill a ton of paperwork. That's just my take on it. Let me know in the comments what you think. Anyway, let's keep going. Here we have the second page, reviewing vocabulary again. So what are social skills, motor skills, and mental skills? Okay, so you guys saw this quickly before we moved on. So what are social skills, you guys? What are motor skills, and what are mental skills? Well, for social skills, think of stuff that happen with people. So sports, going to school, going to clubs, making friends, the act of talking to other people, interacting with human beings, that for me is what social skills are. Okay, social skills, for the most part is outside, but now that we have the internet and social media, it doesn't really have to be always outside. And I'll talk more about that. I'll dive into more detail as we go down. So for motor skills, basically motor skills, think of it as, you playing sports, right? And getting better at it. Doing art, for example, painting. All of these things are considered motor skills. And finally, for mental skills are actually similar, but it's the requirement for you to practice in order to get better. Think of it as when you're playing a video game. You might not win the first time, and that is why you die, and then you spawn back in, and now you learn from your mistakes. This is the whole mental skills thing. This is what it means to have mental skills, right? How do you deal with a problem at school? How do you deal with a math equation? How do you deal with, when you get older, how do you, find a way to not make your boss mad, to find a way to do work in a different style? All of these are all mental skills. Okay, for 2, how can you develop each kind of skill? Well, that's pretty simple. For social skills, go outside and meet new people, or there's an alternative, you know, find a way to find or start interesting conversations with people on the internet. Social media is booming right now. You could easily develop your social skills by talking and interacting with people, or not people, complete strangers on a certain topic. These are good for developing your social skills. Motor skills. For motor skills, it is good to simply, take up a hobby. For example, like, go to the gym. Okay, start painting. Start learning how to type faster. All of these work in your favor in developing motor skills. And for mental skills, well, you want something that's really difficult, in the beginning, so that you can get better over time. And, it really stretches your brain out and shapes your mentality on how you view things or how you view hard things. So, for example, let's take mathematics. I know some people are not, fans of equations and stuff, but you can't deny that when you do a lot of mathematical equations, you simply change your way of thinking when it comes to mathematical equations and problems in general. Sorry about that. And why? And that is, part of the reason as to why high school kids get a lot of, mathematical equations and chemistry equations and all that. It's, the hidden factor behind all of it is that they're teaching these young kids to, stretch their brain out, how to, problem solve, but in a hidden way, if that makes sense. So just for mental skills, something like playing a hard video game, doing mathematical equations, doing something that is hard so that you have to practice and get better over time. Okay, that took way too long. Let's go to exercise B, activating ideas. Study the assignment on the right and give 3 reasons in support of the idea and give 3 reasons to oppose the idea. Okay, so Faculty of Education, assignment 1, computer games, dangerous or educational? Excuse me. Parents should allow their children to play computer games without any restrictions. Discuss. Okay, so the first 3 reasons in support of the idea. For me, this is a no-brainer. I'll say to develop social skills. There are studies showing that a lot of people that play computer games, or even not computer games, just games on console in general, play with friends. Because trust me when I say this, playing games alone can be quite boring for the most part, unless you're playing like a campaign kind of game. But for the most part, people play with friends. So first reason, to develop social skills. Second, I know that's pretty weird for you guys, but I'll say to improve mental skills. Like we said, for mental skills, you need something that's hard, that constantly challenges you so that you actually have to practice and get better. So that'll easily develop your mental skills. All right, last thing for me, I'd say it's educational. So depending on the games that you play, games can be both educational, providing you with history facts with a little bit of a twist. Think of it as watching a historical movie. They're going to add twists, but it'll be historically accurate for the most part. So I'd say third reason is that it can be educational. Right. 3 reasons to oppose the idea. Okay, one thing that we all know about video games is that it can be addictive. So that's number 1 for me. It can be addictive, and if you get addicted to video games, obviously it's not as bad as being addicted to heroin or something, but it's addictive nonetheless, and it'll ruin your life. You'll be doing nothing but playing video games all day and night. Right, one more thing that I want to add is the time-wasting aspect of it. Now, I know this contradicts what I just said, because I just said that you can develop social skills and mental skills, but some people, when they watch movies or play video games, I'm just giving an example here, they don't really focus on doing anything. So they play alone. They're not even thinking. They're, moving from their phone to computer games to YouTube. So they're just kind of wasting time. So this is a reason as to why I think video games are basically useless if you play it like that. Like you play 2 minutes, then you check your phone, then you check YouTube for a bit, and then you come back to your video game, play like 10 minutes, and it's like you're not giving yourself a challenge. And that is why this is considered, you're just wasting time at this point. Okay, so the third reason for me is that although I said, again, contradicts what I just said, but hear me out. So it can make you socially awkward. What I mean by that is if you play a lot of computer games, although you'll be socializing, some people don't play with friends, like we said, or some people just value their privacy too much and don't like to talk to strangers at all. This is where you don't develop social skills, like we said. So in this case, you become socially awkward. So in the event that you actually have to come out of the house and talk to people, you become socially awkward. You don't know what to say. You don't know how to act. You don't know where to put your hands. You don't know where to look with your eyes. All of these are supposed to be developed when you go outside, but since you don't and you don't talk to people at all, you're going to be struggling and be socially awkward. Okay, so that was exercise B. Let's take a look at exercise C, gathering information. Study the notes for the assignment at the top of the opposite page. Which column has examples, explanation, and general points? Okay, so here we have the notes for this assignment. By the way, what we just discussed, that was my own. This is the book. So parents should allow their children to play computer games without any restrictions discussed. So 4, like we said, it's educational, improve social skills, and improve mental skills. For educational, you can learn about the world. For improving social skills, you must play with at least 2 to 3 players. And to improve mental skills, we haven't found out yet. We'll find out in a second. Against, 1 is not given, but we can see that as not an example, just a simple description. Only simple task against computer. Example, downhill racer. I'm guessing this is a video game. Turn character left or right on screen. Show violence. Not shown. Not shown. Do not develop social skills. Not shown. And example survey, 82% play games on own some of time. Okay, so which column has examples, explanations, and general points? So I'll say that the first column has general points, second column has explanations, and the third column has the examples, okay, as you can see here. Okay, what else do we have? Read the 2 paragraphs below the notes and complete the notes with information from the paragraphs. Okay, so let's read this quickly, and then we'll fill the missing pieces with our own information from the paragraph, okay? Excuse me. There are many reasons to support the idea. Firstly, some games are educational. Children can learn about the world from the games. For example, there are geography games and history games. There are also games which are based on quizzes. Secondly, some games improve social skills. You must play some games with 2 or 3 people. A recent survey says that 76% of teenagers play games with their friends most of the time. Finally, some games improve mental skills. There are many games which involve problem solving. For example, in my town, children build and manage a town and deal with its problems. There are also many reasons to oppose the idea. Firstly, some games do not teach useful information. Players only complete a simple task against the computer. For example, in the game Downhill Racer, players only turn a character left or right on the screen. Secondly, some games show violence. In fact, the aim of some games is violent behavior, which children may copy in real life. In March 2009, a teenager killed 12 people in his school in Germany. The teenager played a violent computer game the night before. Finally, some games do not develop social skills. Children play the games alone in their bedrooms. A recent survey says 82% of teenagers play games on their own some of the time. Okay, pretty interesting read. Now let's go back. What else do we need? Okay, so let's take a look at the table again. We'll start with 2 here. So improve social skills, must play with 2 or 3 people. For example, I'll say, we'll state the survey that said that 76% play with friends most of the time. Okay, so for 3, for improving mental skills, we'll say 4, problem solving. So we'll write problem solving here. And for the example, we'll say My Town, which is a video game, is used to help kids or children build, manage, and deal with its problems. Okay, for against, the first point will be not teaching useful info or information. Against, only simple task against computer, and for example, the game Downhill Racer. 2, it can show violence, right? And for against, to write here, we'll say The aim is violent behavior, which the children may copy in real life. And for example, we'll state that the whole thing that happened that on March 2009, a teen killed 12 people in school in Germany because of playing a violent game the night before. 3, do not develop social skills. For that, we'll say simply because they play games alone in their own bedroom. And example, survey, 82% play games on their own some of the time. Okay. Now that we're done with exercise C, let's take a look at the vocab box. Behavior, copy, and supportive, manage, oppose, problem solving, quiz, support, turn, violence, and violent. Okay. D, writing an opinion. Study the opinions below. Which one do you agree with more? So parents should allow their children to play computer games. Parents should not allow their children to play computer games. You guys got to understand that this is black and white. So just choose one, and we'll give a more specific opinion in the second part. So I'll say that parents should allow their children to play computer games. 2, give a more specific opinion. Add some of the words from the box to one sentence, to one of the sentences above. Okay, so this will be up to you, but for me, I'll give you some ideas. So some possible sentences include, parents should not allow their young children to play computer games all the time, right? Parents should only allow their children to play educational computer games. That is also something that parents could do. Parents should allow their children to play computer games, for a few days every week. Parents should not allow their young children to play violent video games. That is also something that we can all agree on. So these were some sentences. Now let's take a look at D3 here. Write the final paragraph of the essay for the assignment and give your opinion. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is pause the video and write, based on what we talked about, write the final paragraph for this essay and give your own opinion on it. So I'll give you what I wrote, but you can write your own or use mine. It's fine. So I'll say, in my opinion, parents should allow their children to play computer games. However, I believe that parents should take some actions. Firstly, they should not allow young children to play violent games. Secondly, they should not allow their children to play computer games all the time. And finally, they should encourage their children to play computer games with friends instead of alone. Okay? So that was the first part of the writing section, you guys. Now let's move on. All right, you guys. So now let's move on to the next part of this writing section. Here we have exercise A. Let's take a look at skills check 1 first. Here we have spelling schwa. Schwa is basically the most common sound in English. It's that sound. I don't know how to say it like that, but it's like the sound. You guys will understand that in a minute. So you can hear it in almost every word with more than one syllable. But how do you spell it? The simple answer is there are simply no rules. You must learn the spelling of each word with the schwa sound. So for A, things like educational, alone, about, mental, that A sound, that's what's called schwa. E, violent, problem, different, finger, and children. I, activity. O, develop, button, reason. U, suggest, actually, useful, and support. Okay? Now let's take a look at exercise A. Here we have rewrite each word with the correct vowel letter in each space. Okay, so every word here is missing a vowel, and we're going to complete it by rewriting all of them. So 1, obviously, it's activity. Okay, missing an I. 2, we have reason, missing an O. 3, we have develop, again, missing an O. 4, that'll be recent, missing an E. Educational, okay, educational, missing an A. Then we have support, missing a U. Finger, missing an E. Then we have useful, missing a U as well. What is that one? Oh yeah, that's mental. That missing an A. Then we have violent. Yep, missing an E. And we have finally, an A, and finally children, missing an E. Okay? So activity, reason, develop, recent, educational, support, finger, useful, mental, violent, finally children, and that's it. Okay? Now let's move on. What do we have here? Here we have identifying a new skill, exercise B, skills check 2. So many paragraphs in academic English have the PEX, oh, I don't know what that is, but let's take a look. Structure. So basically, the PEXPEG structure is you'll have a point, okay, so one of the writer's ideas or yours, and then an explanation for said idea, and finally, an example about the idea or the point itself, okay? Let's take a look at exercise B here. Study the extract below from the essay and listen 4.10. We just did that. Mark the sentences P, EXP, and EG. Okay, so if I want to mark this as P, it means this is one of the points or ideas. EXP means it's an explanation for the idea and example about the idea. Okay, so let's take a look. Firstly, some games do not teach useful information. Well, this is going to be one of the main points. Okay? Players only complete a simple task against the computer. This is, again, explaining the idea. And finally, for example, just using the words for example, I already know that this is going to be an example. So for example, in the game Downhill Racer, players only turn a character left or right on the screen. So EG, okay? P, EXP, and EG. Okay, let's move on. Exercise C, practicing a new skill. Let's take a look. Okay, so the sentences below come from two different paragraphs. One paragraph is for computer games and one is against. Mark the sentences for computer games with a tick and mark the P, EXP, and EG in each paragraph. Okay, so it looks like we have two different kinds of sentences here. We have one for computer games and one is against computer games. Okay? So based on that, we're going to tick the ones that are for computer games and we'll leave the ones that are against. Okay? So 1, in Beat the Clock, I'm guessing that's a game, the player must use 6 different keys to get a good score. Keys means I'm going to be using a computer, so that'll be a tick. So is this a point, an example, or is it an explanation to the idea, you guys? Yes, that's correct. That is going to be an explanation to the idea, okay? Because he's explaining to you that you have to use 6 different keys to get a good score, okay? In some games, it require very fast and complicated finger movements. Yeah, I'd say that. That's for computer games as well. And some games require very fast. This is an explanation. Okay? Explanation. Oops, sorry about that. EXP. Actually, I think I messed something up here. In the first one, in Beat the Clock, this is not. This is an example, not an explanation. So I'm not explaining to you. I'm giving you an example. Like in Beat the Clock, the player must use 6 different keys to get a good score. So sorry about that. I got confused for a second. Computer games do not develop motor skills. This is obviously against, so I'm not going to tick it. And is this a point, an example, or an explanation? This is me stating a point, so that'll be a P. Actually, hold on, let me put that like this. In Monkey Business, the player only presses 2 buttons. Yeah, this is not Monkey Business. That is not something about computer. Monkey Business, the player only presses 2 buttons. Yeah, no, this is simply, I'll say this is an example. Computer games improve motor skills. Well, this is something good for computers, and it is, again, a point. Some games involve very little physical activity. Okay, this is against computers. Obviously, by the way, when I say not one is against computers, it might be about computers, but it is against the concept of playing on computers. Okay, so some games involve very little physical activity. This will be a no. And what is this? This is going to be an explanation. Okay, I'm explaining that some games involve very little activity. All right, now let's move on. Let's take a look at the vocab box. Here we have character, complete, complicated, explain, finger, movement, point, screen, simple, and task. Okay? Now let's go to the next page. Here we have exercise D, read skills check 3. Okay, so skills check 3 using articles. You guys know articles, a, and, some, or the. Okay? So we often need an article in front of a noun, as you guys know. So the children, the girls, the boys, anything like that. So you already know about using a / an or the. We talked about this before in numerous videos, but sometimes we don't need any article at all, and we'll take a look at that in a second and for the next exercise as well. So the general rule is, you guys, is that we don't put an article, so that's a, and, some, or the, in front of a noun, you know, when we're talking about all or any kind of the noun. Okay, so when we're talking about any or all the kind, when we're talking about all or any kind of a noun, stop using articles, okay? We could put an adjective in front of a plural noun to talk about all of this kind. So let me give you an example. I know it sounds a little bit confusing. So if I say, children see violence on television, this indicates or translates to me saying all children, right? I'm talking about all the children and any kind of violence. Like I said before, don't put articles when you're going to talk about all or any kind of a noun, okay? So in this case, I can't use articles because children see violence on television translates to all children and any kind of violence, okay? Okay, so if I ask a question, let me say, do violent games cause violence? This, again, translates to all violent games and any kind of violence. So in this case, I can't use articles as well. Now, when do we use article? We need an article to talk about a particular example, like I said. So for example, if I want to talk about the boys, the girls, all of this, I'm going to have to add an article. So in this case, I'll say something like, I can't say, girls in my class are very clever, or boys in my class are very clever. I have to say, the boys in my class are very clever, or the girls in my class are very clever. Okay? Now let's go to exercise E. Look at the images and study the first part of an essay about violence in children. Underline the nouns with the, circle the nouns with 0 article, and give a reason for using no article in each case. Okay, so let's take a look. First, we're going to underline all the nouns with articles, and we're going to circle the nouns with 0 articles, okay? So, and as I'm going one by one, I'm gonna be giving you guys the reason for, for the ones that we use an article on. For example, words that have the behind them. Okay, so let's take a look. Bandora's Bobo doll experiment. Okay, so do violent games cause violence in the real world? Okay, we're gonna circle games and violence. Okay, we didn't use articles here, but they are nouns with 0 articles. Some in the real world. Oh, I actually almost forgot this one. So here we're gonna underline world because we have a the here, because we're talking about something specific, okay? Particular. Some psychologists think that they do. A psychologist, Albert Bandura, conducted a famous experiment in 1961. He put some children into 2 rooms, room A and room B. There was a doll in the corner, okay, so we're going to underline corner. Again, we're talking about a particular corner in this case, one of each room. An adult came into room A. The adult hit the doll. So doll, again, we're going to underline that because we're talking about a specific doll, the. An adult also came into room B. The adult didn't hit the doll, so hit the doll. Doll, again, I'm going to underline it for the same exact reason. So 50% of the children, like I said, again, we're talking about particular, something specific, so in this case, it's the children, saw violence. I didn't use any articles with the word violence, so I'm going to circle that, and 50% did not. The children, again, we're going to underline that. It has the. In room A became violent. They hit the doll, again, underline that. When the adult, again, the, left the room, again, underline room. The children, underline that, in room B did not show violence. Circle violence, okay, because we don't have articles here. Bandura said, children who see violence often become violent. Okay, so notice here how I said children. I'm going to underline children even though there's no article, because in the normal sentence, there will be the children who see violence. It's just that his quote is missing the. Okay, so children who see violence often become violent. Violence is going to be circled because there's no article here, but in a normal sentence, there's always going to be the before children. Okay, so children who see violence often become violent. Okay, so that was the first part. Now let's move on to the second part. All right, you guys, so now let's move on to the final part of this writing section. Here we have exercise A, reviewing vocab. Complete each sentence with a suitable word. Let's take a look here. Okay, so 1, computer games are now the most popular. This one was already written, so I'll say leisure. Oops, I can't. 1 second. What was it? Yeah, it was leisure for teenagers. Computer games are now the most popular leisure for teenagers. Okay, 2, many children nowadays do not get much physical activity. Children need to improve hand and eye coordination. So coordination. Teen games teach children to dash with other children, to cooperate with other children. Many teenagers do not like, what do teenagers not like? Many teenagers do not like, I'll say, competitive sport because they are not interested in winning. Games need concentration and focus. Some children have very little confidence and low, we'll say, self-esteem. Oh, sorry, that is not supposed to be an X, an S, okay? Low self-esteem. Many teachers do not support the idea of compulsory physical education at secondary school. Okay, so leisure, activity, coordination, cooperate, competitive, focus, self-esteem, and support. Now let's take a look at the vocab box real quick. So we have compulsory, conduct, confidence, lifestyle, low, nowadays, out of school, physical education, and sporty. Okay, let's go to exercise B. You are thinking to do the assignment on the right. Think of 3 points for and 3 points against the idea. You guys remember we did this a couple minutes ago when we talked about 3 points for and against as to why and why not. So assignment 1, Faculty of Sports Science, the role of physical education. Physical education should be compulsory in secondary school. Discuss. Okay, so for and as to why we should implement the idea of physical education being compulsory. First, it can help develop social skills. It can help develop mental skills, like we said, and it could help children get more exercise. Since in modern day life we don't get as much exercise as we like to admit. Okay, now for 3 points against. First one that comes to mind is obviously not all children are going to like physical education, so this could cause problems with anxiety and low self-esteem, so that's one. The whole system itself could be conducted in a bad way so that it favors, people that enjoy sports more, which is part of the problem if you ask me. And I think that's about it. Oh, well, no, that's 2. So not conducted well, low self-esteem, and I'd say bullying. That's a big one that a lot of people don't focus on, and that is sporty children might make fun of and bully, which becomes really similar to the whole anxious and self-esteem idea. Okay, now let's go to exercise C, organizing. So study the points in the notes at the bottom of the page for and against the idea. Write notes to explain each point. Okay, so we're going to be writing notes today, or now. Think of an example for each point. We're going to be writing examples as well, and add extra points, explanations, and examples, and write notes for your own opinion. Okay, so we're going to have to be writing good notes because you guys are going to be writing an essay for and against. Okay, so if you turn the page, you have for your essay about physical education, whether it should be compulsory in secondary schools. So for, against, and you'll have a conclusion. By the way, just a quick something off topic here. If you could go to page 168 just to get an idea of how a good conclusion looks like. Okay. Now let's start with the notes here. We have physical education should be compulsory in secondary school. 4, not much exercise out of school, which is because modern lifestyles equals no physical activity. And for example, when parents drive children all day and they don't walk as much and stuff like that. Okay, helps develop motor skills. To give an explanation, I'll probably say they need to learn to coordinate their hands and feet if they're playing soccer, for example. Okay, so I'll write here, need to learn to coordinate their hands and feet. For example, I'll say that tennis is good for eye and hand coordination. Helps develop mental skills. Okay, 4, I'll say, to explain, I'll play sports involve many mental skills. For example, concentration and focus is required for good results. You can't just play a sport while not really focusing on it. It doesn't work that way. Helps develop social skills. Okay, so I'll say children need to learn to cooperate with other people. Okay? And for example, in team games, children learn to play a role in the team and to keep that role. Okay, now for against, we'll say the first one is not conducted well. Well, that is PE teachers can become bullies, like I said, or even students. For example, they could make fun of children, calling them ugly names and stuff like that. 2, sporty children enjoy, but other children don't. So to explain, they'll simply feel humiliated. And to give an example, they never get to play on the team. 3, low self-esteem. Well, we'll say low self-esteem can actually mean less exercise and you just become fatter. Okay? And there's not really an example here. It's just the same old, like low self-esteem can induce an anxiety and stuff, which means you could become socially awkward, and you could have a hard time moving around. If it's not in your room, then you're having trouble moving and talking to people. Okay, so that was the writing section. Now I hope you guys write this essay because it is very important that you do. So use the points that we just talked about to write your for and against and give a conclusion on why you think it should be compulsory or why should it not. Okay, so this was the writing section, you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.